The dominant nation in the Formula 4 discipline at the FIA Motorsport Games over the years has been Italy. Winners in 2019, winners in 2022. It could well be a different nation at the very top this year. And this is the second free practice session for the F4 discipline. Everybody in the same type of chassis with an Abarth 1400cc turbo engine. The cars all run by Spanish teams from the Spanish F4 Championship, and it is one of the best grids of the weekend, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating to see who comes out on top, because there are some drivers with quite a bit of single-seater experience and some less so, but quite a lot of champions, whether it's been from karting or single-seaters, mixed amongst them. David Addison, Joe Osborne trackside, and as you look at the cars queuing up ready to get themselves out on track, this is the second free practice period. Earlier on in the day it was Team Greece topping the times of Philippe Armand Carras, but they get 45 minutes for these free practice sessions, so you can learn a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long time in an F4 car when you think about how long their races are. So they typically will split this into 3 15-minute runs with gaps in between, do some setup changes, do some driver coaching. Obviously, they're at the start of their single-seater career in F4, so the driver coaches will be downloading the data in the video and giving them improvements to do on the fly in the session to go and find some more time. The top 11 in free practice 1 covered less than a second between them, so very tight already. And we saw Team Greece clear from Spain, from Israel, Portugal, Peru, Australia, Sri Lanka, United Kingdom, Serbia and Brazil. So a real nice mixture of historically strong in motorsport games teams and some new ones in the mix as well. So at the moment, very hard to call after one 45-minute session. Let's see how it looks after this second one.
And they will have a 25-minute qualifying race and then a 30-minute main race for the medals. So the drivers with, as we made the point, lots of track time available. The final circuit race discipline of Friday at the FIA Motorsport Games before the circuit becomes a rally stage. We've already got drivers under investigation for, in the case of the driver of Team Israel's entry, Ariel Alkin, crossing the white line at pit exit. So that's going to be looked at by the stewards, who had an awful lot to look at with the dreaded track limit issue in free practice 1. We had a look, Joe and I, just at where the corners were that people were transgressing, and it was mainly turn 1 and turn 14. And we knew that because at the end of page 3 of all of the lap time deletions, it was still telling us turn 1 and turn 14. But the fact that it was 3 pages long illustrated just how many people were doing it.
Yeah, really, really difficult here at Valencia, the track limits, because it is so wide and open. You can see that shot there, and the cars just want to dip a wheel over the curb, and then that is a track limit. As soon as that last wheel of 4 is crossed the white line, that is illegal. As we look at Team Portugal, a nice bit of space. You can see the cars queuing up on pit exit, just getting ready to do a practice start. So important in single-seater racing from a standing start, as that would be track limits out of turn 4. It just depends whether you get caught out of 5 as well. So some corners heavily policed, some more relaxed.
And Francisco Macedo has been a double Portuguese karting champion. This year he's raced in Formula 4 in Spain and in Italy, because it's the same car, same chassis, same engine, so it's worth, if the budget permits, doing as much as you possibly can. He also raced in the Formula 4 Winter Series, the Iberian-based series, at the start of the year. So he's done a lot of mileage in this car, and Francisco Macedo 4th in FP1. So he's somebody that you should anticipate to be up near the top of the times. Yeah,
a huge amount of experience, and has done well in a car that is easy to get on top of but hard to be fast in, would be my synopsis of it. I've actually done a few test days in it this year, and it's a lovely car to drive, but to find that last half a second, it gets very leery on the rear of the car. And I don't know why you're laughing. I didn't have any issues, but I can imagine a driver having an issue with the rear, losing grip and not facing the right way.
It's just that I can remember your single-seater days of years gone by.
I technically didn't lose rear grip. I lost all grip as I was upside down, hurtling through the air upside
You gained
down.
altitude, even if you lost grip. Yeah. Ariel Alkin from Team Israel, under investigation for crossing the white line at pit exit. He's now lost 2 successive lap times for track limits at turn 1. But he's the fastest. So Ariel Alkin, 1:35.9. which is 4/10 down on what they were doing earlier on in the day, but they will get there, no doubt, as tyres start to come back up to temperature. Number 1 there you're looking at, and the drone is chasing Gennaro, or as he prefers to be, Gino Trappa from the Team Argentina, and he is 6th in Formula 4 Brazil. He's had a win at Interlagos. He's also raced in F4 Spain this year. Quite a few drivers have come to race in Spain with a view, I think, to just gaining a field for working with a team, getting used to the culture even, if it's not the track, but in anticipation of the Motorsport Games. Those that race in F4 Spain do not drive for the same team in the Motorsport Games.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting one because they would have been opposition at many points this year. So then to join the enemy to try and win a race is a strange format to have. But yeah, when you talk about all these F4 series, it really is a global championship and a global car. And that's why it's so good to have it at Motorsport Games, because it encapsulates the whole spirit of it, bringing all of these nations together under one roof in one car that is completely the same across all of them. So it really comes down to the driver and what they can deliver.
And it was also the category that was able to keep the Macau Grand Prix going for a couple of seasons, because there was a strong F4 category in the region, and that, while people couldn't really travel, was able to fill that void. Number 14 rattling over the curb for Hong Kong, China is Keishun Liu, but he survived the moment and heads up towards the timing line now. Racing driver and pro golfer. Golfing has, I think, taken a sidestep for racing, but the runner-up in last year's Chinese F4 Championship, Keishun Liu, so he is certainly not below par at the moment.
It's quite diverse to be very good at the best sport in the world and the worst sport in the world, in my opinion, and I'll let you decide for which one I think is that way round.
Well, one's a sport and the other's a walk, isn't it? Yeah.
See a big slide out of 12, then hitting the exit cable, front wheels in the air there, so luckily it came down straight, and you're seeing a lot of cars locking up actually into 14, the next corner that he was making his way to. Very easy downhill just to lock the inside left there, and again running wide. You see the amount of dust as well.
Yeah, an awful lot of that has been dragged onto the circuit, so he survived it, as we see now for Team Norway, Olav Var, who has won the Nordic based Formula Basic single-seater championship, sort of sub F4 level. He's won the Norwegian Championship, the Norwegian Cup this year. He's also been racing in Porsches. So Olav Var thinking perhaps about which way the career might go. You know, he'd like to stay single-seaters, but if that doesn't work, well, I've got some GT knowledge through Porsche Cup. So Olav Var could be another dark horse this weekend, although in the earlier free practice session, the Norwegian was only 21st, so there's a bit of time to find.
Yeah, and maybe just a strategy on what they were doing. Maybe they were doing longer runs, anticipate the race, but we've seen another big snap of oversteer there. Drivers are really trying to work the car all the way up to the gravel trap, but to sway that, the curb is rather large on the exit, and these cars actually bottom out, so the wooden floor, the plank, you can just see kissing up a bit of smoke as they run wide, just bottoms out, and that takes weight off the wheels, which then takes grip away from the driver. So it kind of self-police quite well on the exit of turn 12 in that regard.
Mention of the plank prompts the thought of George Russell and Spa, prompts the thought of Mercedes Formula 1, prompts the thought that the winner of the gold medal 2 years ago was Andrea Kimi Antonelli, who will step up to Formula 1 next season. That's quite a career trajectory, but it illustrates the importance of F4 as a category.
Yeah, it's so important. It's an early step on the ladder, but a very important one indeed, and it's really the sort of breeding ground to find that next F1 driver, and that is why it's so hotly contested around the world at all times, because everyone is trying to vie to be the best in F4. Although it sounds a long way from F1, if you're a winner in F4, you are on a very good path to make it all the way like Antonelli has.
People with long memories will remember how Formula Ford was the global single-seater category. Those days admittedly are gone, but it is important, I think, to have something as a kind of equivalent. I know these are a much more modern car with the halo, with the wing, slick racing tyres, whereas it was a wing-less road tyre Formula Ford all those years ago. But something where drivers from around the world can compete on a level playing field and compare themselves against each other. And it's important for teams as well to know where people stand, because trying to compare somebody from a domestic single-seater championship, might be F3, to Formula Regional, to FIA Formula 3, you know, how do I compare all of this? But F4, with everything being similar, the same, you can work it out.
Yeah, it feels like a palate cleanser of motorsport, that anyone can come in from any F4 championship around the world and then go. Of course, there's some more competitive regions than others, but at the moment, when you group them all together, it's almost quite hard to call which is the single most competitive F4 championship, and that just means that everyone has a good shot at winning this weekend, I think.
Now, that timing tower on the left is still showing you that Team Israel, Ariel Elkin, is the fastest. And if you have a look to the very far right, you'll see there are little yellow dashes and there are greens. Green is a personal best in a sector. Yellow is a little bit slower than it was. White is an outlap. But purple is what we need to be looking for, because purple means better than anybody else. And it looks as though we've just had one of those, courtesy of Team Spain, does it not? Because now third fastest is Juan Cota, or Juan Cota Alonso, to give him his full name. There is the Team Spain entry. And having been racing in Spanish Formula 4 this year, in which he's fourth, Juan Cota has got to start as one of the favourites.
Yeah, and he goes all the way up to second there, so still a little slower than this morning's times. Track normally goes off a little bit in the late afternoon, just the track temp comes up, offering slightly less grip to these drivers, so they won't be alarmed yet. But purple sector 2 is very good from Cota Alonso, and yeah, I think just having that weight of the nation behind you in your home race, it's sink or swim at the moment. He seems to be swimmingly good.
And fourth currently is Greece, which was the nation that topped FP1, courtesy of Felipe Armand-Carras. Replay here of Juan Cota bouncing it over the curb and reaching the gravel, but getting away with that more or less, but he will have lost some time on that lap.
Yeah, a huge amount of understeer coming on the exit there. Normally these cars rotate well. As soon as you apply the throttle, the rear tyres spin up, which lets you rotate the car and not understeer off into the gravel. But he wasn't the first there. You could see some other tyre marks, in the gravel trap. So obviously looks like it might be a bit of an issue there. We need to keep an eye on the exit of turn 5, that one. So all good at the moment. You can sometimes pick up a punch, you get a bit of gravel stuck between the tyre and the rim, and it lets the air out. You can see the smoke coming across the track in sector 3 from the drift there as we drift out of turn 12 with Cota Alonso.
So Juan Cota then is looking rapid and was quicker than he had been in sector 1, a little bit down in sector 2 on this lap. He has got to try to find a hundredth of a second to go quickest. He's 9,000ths down on Ariel Elkin, who is now pitted, and as he breaks the beam up to the top goes Juan Cota. That is, I suspect, P1.
Very good. I was about to ask what do you think his favourite track in America is, but I'll leave that one for a little bit longer. But yeah, purple sector 3, that has just been stolen off him as well, so it's tight, isn't it? But yeah, I think he just needs to probably work on that turn 5, but he's got great race pace as well, as we see Ariel Elkin there looking rather happy. He was first, now down to second. He's probably just been told that, so maybe some of his energy will be dissipated.
Israel karting champion, Italian karting champion, and has been racing in America this year in the US Juniors Championship, fourth in that category. So much travel driver, and Ariel Elkin rapid. There's a yellow flag out between turns 3 and 4, we understand. So somebody has had a moment between the two corners early in the lap and try to piece together who it is. Yellow in turn 3 and 4, but not instantly seeing anybody stranded on our tracking map. So whether it's a bit of debris that's brought out a yellow flag, we'll check. Through to 4th now goes the Team Australia representative, Griffin Peebles. And there is Nicky Gauci for Team Malta sitting in the pit lane. He's done some hill climbing, he's done lots of karting, but has not raced an F4 car before. So this, for Nicky Gauci, very proud Maltese driver, is quite a step.
It's a huge step, and it's great to do. The confidence to even suggest it as a plan is wild, so great on him. And you can see the laptop being plugged in. Unlike a road car, that isn't a problem. That's downloading the data, and they'll be able to compare that to a reference lap and see the differences on where he can improve his lap time and how. Is it brake pressure? Is it throttle? Is it steering angle? Is it just corner speed? There are obviously so many aspects to making a car go fast around a corner, and being told it there and then is the best way as a driver to then go out and improve and see if you can make the lap time even better.
The yellow flags have been withdrawn, and we understand it was Gino Trappa from Team Argentina that ran wide and triggered the yellow briefly. At the risk of being a bit parochial about this, Team United Kingdom currently 8th, Riza Siwathan, and we've just had another improvement because Greece, Team Greece, Philippe Armancaras, up to 3rd, and you're looking at him right now, but he's found traffic on this lap.
Yeah, and I think with this many cars on track, all on a different strategy, some on outlaps, some about to come in, it's going to be difficult to find. You do get the slipstream, which is a positive lap time, but then as soon as you compromise, you have to brake a tiny bit early. It's very hard to improve in a competitive field like this. Half a tenth is going to make the difference between position 2 or 3, I think, come qualifying tomorrow.
One bails for the pit lane. And here, Carras comes down the pit straight. Now, is there a benefit in terms of getting a tow from that, or is that dirty air?
At that point, it is a positive, but as soon as you turn into turn 1, it is a negative because
right.
of the dirty air. So you'll tend to lose more front grip just because that's affected more. You can see working hard on the wheel there, correcting the slides as well in that dirty air. Goes for a lunge into 2, locks up the inside. I think that was more of a warning to get out of the way, and it seems to have worked well. But yeah, the Angolan car there had to really get out of the way because it looked like contact was incoming.
Yeah, Lorenzo Campos for Team Angola, which illustrates again, doesn't it, the global nature of F4, the global nature of the FIA Motorsport Games, with Angola being part of it. Lorenzo Campos has been racing at the end of the season in F4 in Spain, stepping up from karting, so he's inexperienced but does have a little bit of knowledge of how the car feels, even if he doesn't know this circuit that well. And for Team Austria there, having run off the road, Oscar Wurz, one of the 2 sons of Alex Wurz, and Oscar has been the Central European Zone F4 champion. He's also won F4 races in Saudi Arabia. He's an Austrian and Hungarian karting champion. So he's got one of the better CVs and will be a man to watch, I would have thought.
Yeah, great pedigree as well. So be interesting to know how much his dad gets involved in the day-to-day of it. Obviously, if your father's been all the way to F1, they've got a good understanding of what's needed from you. So yeah, it must be a great asset to have in the family.
So others just biding their time, and the teams working with the drivers, with data, with knowledge, and a big blister on the tyre there. That ain't going anywhere in a hurry.
No, and I think the way the tyre strategy is working this weekend, the team don't want to put another set on, but the flat spot there on the front left, we're saying how easy it is to lock up into 14 as well, into 2 that we just saw on the previous lap. To me, it's performance limiting, but it's probably on the limit of dangerous as well, where one more lock-up on that part, which we know will automatically lock up there because it stops rotating. So where the lock-up spot is always goes to the bottom, and I think that would go pop. So I think they're having to wait there, and maybe they're just deciding should they run another set of tyres.
I wonder whether as well they might be asking for a scrutineer to come and have a look, because if he deems that, as you're suggesting, to be dangerous, he might allow them another tyre.
You're being too kind to the drivers for once. It's a driver mistake. I don't think the scrutineer will buy that and allow them a joker tyre. Typically a joker tyre is if there's force majeure, you can get cut from debris, which they could try and blag it, but for me that's a very nice stereotypical lock-up burn mark.
And it was Team Brazil's Matias Camparato that we were looking at as he was sitting in the pit lane. So Camparato, who is the Formula 4 Brazil Championship leader as we stand, 3 times a race winner. Now, who do we go to next? We go to the Portuguese representative, don't we? Francisco Machido, back out on track and trying to push on and get himself back towards the top. He was 4th in FP1 and he's 4th in FP2 as well.
Yeah, and he's in a lovely bit of clear air as well, so he's got another few laps at least until he's going to catch anyone. Lost a bit of time in Sector 2. These cars don't have a delta time on the dash. Most modern cars now do have it. The F4 doesn't, so it really leaves it down to the driver to work out, has this been a good lap or a bad lap? So when you've got that delta, you can live see was that a good or a bad corner, whereas these guys are just having to go on muscle memory and compare it to what they think is right, which is a great skill to have to learn on your journey all the way up the motorsport ladder.
Right, so Machido goes through, but not an improver, and it is still these 9,000ths of a second between Ariel Elkin and Juan Cota, who had gone quickest, but I think then had that lap taken off him, didn't he, for track limits. So Cota down to second once more. For Team Peru there is Andres Cardenas, and he's another driver that's been busy in the Spanish F4 Championship this year. But and we'll talk on quite a number of the drivers in this context, he's somebody else to illustrate how important the FIA Motorsport Games is, because 2 years ago he was competing in karting sprint junior. Fast forward 2 years, he's made that step up to single-seaters, to car racing, to F4, and here he is back again representing his country.
Yeah, so 2 years ago you would have seen what a great event it is, and at the time he would have only been old enough to race a go-kart. So as soon as he's got old enough, he's been able to promote himself through the ranks into F4, represent Peru, and he's currently inside the top 10 as well.
That's Team United Kingdom's Riza Siwathan, and Siwathan drives for the Campos team, which was founded by the late ex-Formula 1 racer Adrian Campos, but it's one of the go-to Spanish teams. But he's done no testing, he's not raced here before, and of course it's a new team. So even though he races F4 in the UK, and Riza Siwathan was third in the championship, double winner, looked after by Phil Glue's Edge Management Company, there are a lot of news to this weekend.
Yeah, and the track's the hardest one. When you've not tested at a track before, you do a lot of watching the onboard videos, a lot of sim work as well to try and make sure you're in the zone. But as soon as you get here, there's a couple of subtle differences to what you thought on the sim, for example. You suddenly are there. So this is only the second time he's driven on the track. So he's obviously got his areas to work on from FP1, and that's what he's going to be trying to do there. But yeah, I think he will be on for a podium come race day.
Yeah, Riza Siwathan has come out of Ginetta Junior Racing, which is the sort of UK school of hard knocks, and that is for Team Brazil, Camparetto out of the car. So I think what we were looking at in terms of a damaged tyre has now been decided. That's it, the session's over, we don't want to waste another tyre, and really it's your mistake, chap, that's going to cost you the track time, because there is still just under 21 minutes to go.
Yeah, I think it's more than one. I think we can see the one there, and there's also a picture being taken. You can see the construction of the tyre. It's a great illustration, isn't it? It dissects it quite nicely. The rubber on top into the construction material, a bit of Kevlar in there, then into a sort of a conveyor belt material, and then the air. And when you can see the air, it doesn't normally stay in there very long, as we see Malta getting out as well. So it's almost like these 2 45-minute sessions have been a bit too long for some of these drivers and tyres, and it's a hard strategy. Do you use another set of tyres to get some more laps in practice, but then limit your performance capabilities in qualifying and then the races? And most teams, I think, are saying, no, drivers, you just need to hopefully have done enough in the time we've given you to be able to do the job we need from you in qualifying.
And another one for the pit lane is Matos Riba, the former hockey player for Slovan Bratislava. His father, Martin Riba, has been in touring cars, Lamborghini Super Trofeo. Riba translates as fish, hence Brutal Fish Racing, the team that his father used to have. And he's been a karter turned F4 racer in Spain and Italy and Central Europe and the UK over the course of the season. So he has done the mileage.
Yeah, I think he's going to go well this weekend. And again, just down in 14th at the moment. The problem is if you're parking up for the day effectively as a driver, you've got to sort of big yourself up and go, yes, I can do it, but it's going to be hard when you've got 13 cars that are faster than you in this session, as we see Siwathan. A bit of pick up on that tyre, so a bit of dirty rubber sticking to it there, looking to maybe clean it up, so next time he goes out he's going to have to weave left to right to try and get rid of that sort of build-up of excess rubber that feels like a horrible sort of squidgy nature. When you commit to a corner, you're not getting the maximum grip from the tyre you want.
Team Serbia, another of the nations represented by Andrea Kostic, and he's been another regular F4 racer in the Central European zone, in Italian F4 and Euro 4, which is the German-Italian merged series. F4 was quite strong in Germany, then it really struggled, and so it's been kept alive with this Euro 4 concept, where it has a couple of the 3 events in Germany and Italy as well, just to keep the interest level up within Germany and to keep the teams in operation as well. And it's been another successful concept, that. But Andrej Kostic comes out now from turn 11, makes the run to 12, and heading towards the end of the lap with still 18 minutes on the clock. The Formula 4 teams, just to make the point for their medals, will have the qualifying session Saturday morning and the qualifying race Saturday afternoon, with the medal-winning main race on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, seen a big lock-up residue smoke there. Just trying to work out who it is. I think it's probably car 11 there, the Portuguese entries. We see even more smoke coming from the drift. On the last lap, went under the radar a bit. Elkin, Team Israel, actually improved the fastest lap of the session with a 33.6 and is in a purple sector 1 as well at the moment. So Israel still pushing on pretty hard. Still slower than FP1 this morning, but only a 10th off now.
But he's done another absolute best within sector 1 on this lap as Team Israel's Ariel Elkin, so he might yet be able to go faster, and I think he's okay in terms of track limit abuses. For Team Hong Kong China, Kai Shun Lu rattles it up over the curb, and he's heading up towards the end of the lap as well, coming now up from turn 5. But Ariel Elkin, in the end, down in 2, down in 3, so a slower lap.
Yeah, and it just shows you that maybe that car only had 2 fast laps in it, because he finished the last lap on a purple and started the next on a purple, but then it dropped off. So more data for the team. They can maybe adjust the tyre pressures and either get them to come in slightly earlier or slightly later to make sure the lap is purple, 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 not split over 2 laps.
Oscar Wurtz talking to the team and explaining for Team Austria what he wants, what the car feels like, and whether there's anything they can do to it. But that's another car that's showing the wear on its tyres.
Yeah, it just looks like the top of that tyre is showing a little bit of the canvas poking through. So interesting on the right side. I expect it more on the left here because there are more left-hand corners. The unloaded inside front, normally locks easier, so the left is more likely to suffer that damage. Another hot spot here for it is turn 8. You can see the amount of lock-up marks on the road there as Argentina kick up a bit of dust on the inside, out wide, sweeping through this flat-out chicane of 9 and 10. Then another hard brake zone because the car's not quite straight, but you need to hook it in for a late apex at 11 and then open it up. And I think the next corner is the hardest corner of the lap. Turn 12, very uphill, very blind on entry from a driver's perspective, but fast. And you can see how wide the cars then run over that exit curb, bouncing on their way through flat out 13, downhill brake zone for 14 to finish the lap here at Valencia.
And this for Team Argentina is Gino Trapper heading up towards the timing line then. So a race winner in Formula 4 Brazil, but it's not going to be an improvement because he's down in 1, he's down in 2, he breaks the beam and stays 9th fastest. So number 1, Gino Trapper goes by, road to himself, but no benefit. 15 minutes still on the clock, and quite a number of them now in the pit lane. And I'm getting a little bit concerned about Reza Seaworthen because he's dropped down to 12 in the times now. So hopefully if he can go back out, might be able to find a little bit of time. But more than anything, it's mileage. The more laps he does, yeah, it's taking life out of the tyres, but he's gaining in experience, gaining in track knowledge. 21, also to the curbs, is for Czechia, or the Czech Republic, Maximilian Kahan. And he has been 4 times a race winner in the Central European Zone F4 Championship this season.
Yeah, and I think the car looks pretty good. Obviously, all being run by the same team, but a lot of setup changes they can do. Some of the cars, to me, looking a little soft on the rear. So when they're using these exit curbs, they're popping up as we see another lock-up mark into turn number 1. So again, the drivers with more experience are just able to guide the team a quicker direction and path or the setup they will want, so they'll get the car exactly how they want. Whereas if it's your first time in the car, quite understandably, you don't quite know the parameters and the setup changes that are available to you.
So Kahan is up to 16th, and he was an improver last time, so let's see what he can do now. He is late in the session, being able to find a 10th or so. There's quite a number, as I say, in the pit lane. We've got a good 8, I would think, out of the 21 sitting in the pits. Others still circulating, but improvements fewer and further between. Ariel Elkin remains the fastest by 0.3 of a second, and it's the leading 8 covered by just under a second.
Yes, it's tight, but not as tight as FP1. And again, I think that's just down to people looking to save the tyres a little bit more, whereas in FP1 they would have been brand new and at their best. So yeah, I think we're probably used to seeing normally the top 15 to top 20 in these F4 Championship covered by a second, and I think that's what we'll see in qualifying tomorrow once they're all on the same age tyre again, brand new rubber. They'll probably be into the low 34s would be my prediction on their lap times.
as Maximilian Carhan then makes the run up towards the timing line, and as he comes across, I can't see this being an improvement given those sectors have been down for the previous 2 splits of the lap.
Yeah, and they might just be on a slightly different strategy now where they're looking more at their race pace. So just trying to do maybe 8 to 9 laps in one run, trying to keep it within a tenth, not making mistakes, so the consistency is there. Fastest car of the session still, Team Israel. Elkin coming into the last corner. You can see him working the wheel, opening the steering up. The quicker you open that steering wheel, the quicker the car accelerates. It's amazing how much resistance there is in these cars when you have the lock on. It's one of the sort of the great studies I like to do with my students I coach in single seaters, is get them to push the car with the steering wheel straight and then put full lock on and then try and push it again. And the resistance of just having that extra bit of steering lock in is so much that the car physically can't be pushed then, and it gives you an appreciation when you've only got a 1.4 engine putting out around 175 horsepower. So any marginal gain stuff like that becomes even more important than in a high power car where you can get away with it essentially.
Just under 12 minutes on the clock, as there for Team Sri Lanka is Yevan David, and he's another driver illustrating the global reach of the FIA Motorsport Games, and another driver not only to be in F4 in Spain this season, but back at the Motorsport Games. He took the silver medal in karting senior 2 years ago in Marseille, Paul Ricardo. So some familiar names, even if they're changing categories.
Yeah, and again, it just shows you how well this FIA Motorsport Games works. And again, you're just seeing how many drivers are looking at data. Actually got Kostic there looking on his phone. I assume that's at the live timing, just seeing how he's getting on. He's pretty happy with his 7th position at the moment. And yeah, he's just keeping an eye on everyone, seeing if anyone can get in front of his Team Serbia car.
And there's Reza Seaworthen. So for Team United Kingdom, he improved last time. Reza is up to 9th. And with the patriotic nose on the car, let's see what he can do as he wriggles through this next lap. He is one of the drivers that's done perhaps more than most, not the most, but he's done now 15 laps out of the session, and he is on this lap down in sectors 1 and 2. So 1 push lap done, but he's not going to be able to back it up by the look of it.
Yeah, I think he was just compromised a little bit by some traffic there. The 21 car Team Czech Republic of Carhan, I think, was trying to get out of his way at turn 2, but did just compromise Team UK there. As we see the drone, love this shot, trying to chase all the way through. Gives you a great illustration of where they place the car over the curbs. And you can see all the dark rubber on the outside. That's the drift cars that have been there, but on the way into the corners, that is where we are struggling, locking up the front brakes as we see the uphill turn 12 coming into shot now, and the exit curve, which is really roughing these drivers up. So I think Reza here is looking to set a lap up for the next one, and we will see where we go. That was Kostic we saw last sat in the car. They have called it a day there. High fives all round. Very happy indeed for Team Serbia.
Yeah, because today really is about getting the car right, getting the driver right. It's tomorrow when the qualifying session that gets underway. That's when, if you like, you've got to deliver. But today, to go to bed with that sense of confidence is really mission accomplished.
Yeah, and it's so nice as a driver going to sleep happy. The brain is a powerful tool for and against, and when you've had a bad day, it's amazing how long it can take you to drift away off to sleep, just worrying about what was I doing at turn 4 so badly. It just becomes all your life, especially at this age. You have got one focus and desire, and that's to win every race all the way up to F1.
So with just under 9 minutes still on the clock, it is Team Israel, Ariel Alkin at the top, from Team Spain's Juan Cota, and then Team Greece's Philippe Armand Carras third. And at the foot of the times is the Qatari, Badr Al-Salaiti, who has been a Qatar karting champion, but limited knowledge of car racing. So again, it's perhaps for people like him more important to be on track gaining mileage, but he's only done 5 laps and has spent quite a lot of the time in the pit lane, and so makes one wonder whether all is well there.
Yeah, I haven't seen that car, so we don't know if it's maybe got a problem or it is, again, just part of the strategy of trying to save the tyres a little bit. It'd be interesting to speak to some of these drivers and go, are there any similarities? So in Qatar, the Doha F1 circuit is brilliant. The Losail circuit, built for motorbikes, as is Valencia. So it actually feels quite similar to me, those two tracks, although they're a few thousand miles apart. He may be able to draw on some similarities from Losail and go, actually, turn 4 and 5 quite similar, and I can then go there, and that's what he's going to hope for in qualifying.
And now Juan Cota for Team Spain is being given the driving standards flag for 10 track limit offences. Now, that's quite a lot, really. I know it's free practice and losing a lap time here doesn't matter as much as it would in the qualifying or having track limit penalties in the race, but as Peter Dumbreck, who's one of the driving standards advisors here this weekend for GT, was saying, treat that white line as though it's a barrier. Don't keep crossing it.
Yeah, and you can show Peter's retired from driving now, because he wouldn't have said that 10 years ago. But my excuse for Coto Alonso there would be that this is practice and you're finding the limits. The problem is next time you're in the car as qualifying, you can't do it. So now I want you to go and pump in 3 or 4 laps without a single track limit to make sure your eye is fully in ahead of qualifying tomorrow, and you don't make a sloppy track limit mistake, which could really hurt you by the end of that qualifying session.
Great shot looking down from the drone at the cars coming down the pit lane. The big grandstand atop the pits. Look right to the paddock. Keep going right, keep going right. You'll see the drift track in the background, where presumably there is a lull because there's no smoke being generated. But the F4 teams getting the cars sorted. There is the Qatari driver I was mentioning a little while ago. So walking back up the pit lane is Bader Al-Sulaiti. So certainly work done for today, but I would have thought he would want the mileage, which does put a question mark over that car.
Yeah, I think the team will look at it, and obviously they'll have so much data to be able to review this evening and find exactly where some of that time may be. I think a lot of the drivers now going to weigh, actually, so all the teams have got to meet the minimum weight. Driver weight changes quite a lot over the course of the day, mainly through fluid differences throughout the session, so they want to make sure they're all the right weight come the end of qualifying. We can see the Luxembourg car there, Chester Kiefer. They've had a pretty good day. Just a bit of a debrief with the data engineer, making sure there are no problems. All the teams always like to ask the driver any problems with the car, because drivers have this amazing habit of going home and then the next morning going, did you fix the problem I had with the brakes?
You never told me.
You never told me. Ah, sorry. So that is the number one question to ask a young driver. Full of adrenaline, not always logic.
Reza Seaworthen for Team United Kingdom improved on his previous lap, 1:36.4, but he's on a slower lap again. We saw this early, didn't we? He'd have a good lap and then a slower lap to let the times recover. 25 is the Sri Lankan driver Yevan David, and he is currently 11th, going quite nicely. There aren't many racing drivers out of Sri Lanka. I can think of Yevan David and Delantha Malagamura, the regular GT racer, but motorsport is a popular sport in the nation, even if not many that have been able to come to Europe to do it. But Yevan David is going nicely here. Let's face it, some pretty tough opposition. Yeah, and I was actually at Monza last weekend. David won in the F3 race out there, so fast driver, and difficult conditions at Monza last weekend, so his car control worked absolutely on point. So yeah, maybe as these tyres start to drop off and start to slide, maybe proportionally his lap time will even get him a little higher than just outside the top 10 potentially for him. So Yevan David on a slower lap, but it's looking good for Team Israel, isn't it, for Ariel Elkin, topping the times by 0.367 of a second. Yevan David up towards the line and goes for the pit lane instead. So interesting to see whether with 4 minutes to go he calls that a session. I would have thought that will be it, really, because there's not a lot to benefit for going back out again. No, by the time you've done your out lap, there's just going to be time for one flyer, isn't there? So, yeah, the only thing maybe a team would like to do is a dramatic tyre pressure change just to get a read on, if we go really low, how does that car feel? But, yeah, I think that is day done. And you look on the timing tower there, all the coloured bars, there is not a single green one there. No one is improving on their sectors, and I think that is the end of the session looming on us. Yes, anybody that is still out there is not doing their tyres any good. It's one of those great quandaries, isn't it, of what you do as a driver, as a team, because people always want track time. We've paid this entry fee, we want all this track time. but then you don't use it. And so, because the tyres don't want to have endless laps taken out of them, you end up sometimes with a fallow track. But interesting that the fastest man in the session has gone back out. See, this is an out lap. So Ariel Elkin back out onto the circuit, and what he's going to prove by this, what he's hoping to achieve by this, remains to be seen. I'm just wondering whether or not you need to be on the track at the end of a session to be able to do any practice starts, which is about the only motivation for going back out, as Juan Cota, in contrast, has done.
Bit of a sweat on as well. Ambient temperatures just about 20, but again, shows you the physical nature of these cars. No power steering, no drive aids whatsoever. So a physical car to hustle around a tight, twisty circuit like Valencia, especially on the infield, as we see Carras out of the car as well, looking happy. All the team members, you can see everyone wearing their nation's colours as well. It's nice walking around the paddock and you can see who's representing which team, supporting which team, as we see a big lock-up from Team Austria there. So easy to do, and Wirtz really struggling to release the brake pressure and alleviate that lock-up.
Yeah, so things going from bad to Wirtz for Oscar Wirtz. The Carras family, just going back to Team Greece, you've just been looking at Philippe Armand, his brother racing in one of the karting disciplines at the FIA Motorsport Games. So Team Greece keeping it in the family, as it were. Now, Riza Seaworthen is up to the top 6. So he's the one, if you like, joker in the pack here, who late on is being able to find a little bit more time. And on this lap, he's done 2 greens as well. So another improvement is imminent, although he's up the curb coming through turn 12 there. But Riza Seaworthen will be able to get certainly 1 more lap out of the session. He may not need it, because this might be the ultimate that the tyres can permit. Fights the car out of 12. Up towards the timing line he comes, and Riza Seaworthen will go through 6th at the start of the lap. He breaks the beam. He's up to 5th, so it was worth sticking it out. He's improved across all 3 sectors, and he goes 5th fastest.
Yeah, I think you said right at the exit of 12, probably lost a 10th or 2, so that'd be good for him. Now within 7/10 of the fastest. Is he going to push? This will be his last lap. Checkered flag will be out next time he comes around. Definitely pushing on at the moment. Last lap, these tyres won't get used again, Reza, so you might as well use them. They go in the bin, so make sure you extract every last ounce of performance out of them as he comes through sector 1 now. Is he green? Let's have a look as it pops up any second now. 36.3 last time by in sector 1. 36.2, 1/10 quicker. 6/10 is the delta over the whole lap, and he's just found one of them in 1 sector, so he's going to keep pushing all the way through here. I don't think he's going to get any traffic either as he comes into a big brake zone. Turn number 8, get the car in, get it out, open the steering through the fast chicane here, looking not to lock the brakes up, hard on the brakes for 11. Look into your apex now, get the car in, nice and calm with his hands, no corrections. So he's sort of read it pretty well there, coming through the end of sector 2 now. Is it going to be an improvement? Another green sector here. So this has got a chance, I think, to maybe, if it's perfect, get him all the way up to 2nd, because the gap between 1st and 2nd, 3.5 tenths. He is somewhere there. 3rd is most likely as he locks the brake into 14, and that probably is enough to bleed away the majority of his time loss. And I think this is probably going to be a more like a 4th position lap. Let's see, as he crosses the beam, he goes up to 3rd place. I think he'll be very happy with that quite big mistake under braking for turn 14.
And that brings us to the checkered flag. We've got another driver under investigation. It is Philippe Armand Carras for not following the race director's instruction, which may be to do with what you do at the end of the session. It may have been with how to come down the pit lane, but anyway, he is under investigation, so that plot will continue.
And then just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then
You can hear them talking about the lockup, and they're saying it gets bigger and bigger, and that's just because that flat spot always goes to the bottom of the wheel, so when you do brake slightly too hard, it locks up there. I just want to listen in a little more.
it's not a circle, it's a square.
Yeah, he's backing me up with that theory that he now has square tyres, which I don't think are the optimal shape for a race car tyre. But luckily for tomorrow, you have a brand new set of Pirellis for the start of their qualifying session.
So that qualifying is going to be really interesting, that's for sure. And the drivers coming then towards the end of their in-lap. And then we can have a look at the order. And bear in mind, it's not the grid, it is free practice, but it's been an interesting session nonetheless. And then compare and contrast how people have done today with how they get on in qualifying, which is a shorter period of time. So the pressure is on when they get on track tomorrow, and the qualifying session will be 8:30 in the morning, so really different track temperature. It's going to be quite chilly. You know, we woke up this morning to find wet roads. It was a little bit damp, and it could be a whole different ball game. What they've learnt today may be completely void tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm honestly being sincere as well here with my comments, but getting young drivers up that early in the morning, it's amazing the disparity between them. Some of them like to get up early, they're ready to go. Some, they're young adults growing, they need their sleep. So 8:30 will be a pretty rude awakening for them. The adrenaline will take over, but even that can be a tenth or two difference. And I think in a championship race like this, that could be enough for quite a few positions.
So very happy Ariel Alkin gets out of the car, and a job well done, no question about it. So the Team Israel driver, who's been successful in single-seaters in the States this year, representing his nation, and very happy man indeed. So walked away, goes to talk to the team, we'll look at the data, but the F4 discipline has always been one of the features of the FIA Motorsport Games, and fascinating to see how drivers come from karting into it and then how they do in this discipline. So we look forward to qualifying, we look forward to the qualifying race tomorrow, with then the main race for the medals being on Sunday. So at the end of free practice 2 for Formula 4 within the FIA Motorsport Games, Team Israel, the fastest, Ariel Alkin, the driver, ahead of Team Spain, the margin being 0.367 of a second. United Kingdom up to third in the end. Risa Seaworthen took third, ahead of Team Greece's Filipe Almancaras, Portugal's Francisco Machido, and then sixth was Griffin Peebles for Team Australia. After that, one or two further down than you might have anticipated, including Gino Trapper for Team Argentina, only 10th. Oscar Wirtz and Matus Rieber, 13th and 14th. More to come from them, one would have thought. And also, Matteo Comparato didn't do many laps, given that he damaged a tyre early on. Qatari driver rounding out the order being Badr Al-Solaiti. So that's the order at the end of the second free practice session, and 8:30 Saturday morning is when they're back on track for the all-important qualifying session. Free practice 2 for the Formula 4 discipline in the FIA Motorsport Games. Had the cars pouring out on track for 45 minutes of preparation for the qualifying session on day 2. And it was a busy track, and one or two drivers getting a few mistakes out of their system early on, including Kai Shun Lu, who had a big lock-up heading into turn 2. But he was able to scrabble his way around that, only to then run off the road later around the racetrack, coming out of turn 12, rattled over the curbs once more. But the driver from Hong Kong, China, able to regroup. He wasn't the only one in strife, though, because getting it wrong as well for the Slovakian nation was Matus Rieber, and others were having big lock-ups elsewhere, including Filipe Almancaras, who was trying to get through the traffic and eventually rather monstered Team Angola out of the way. Risa Seaworthen for Team United Kingdom was able to find some good laps late in the session, partly because the road was clearer as well, but Seaworthen got himself up to third for Team UK, as Oscar Wirtz had a late session lock-up for Team Austria, and he ended the session 13th fastest. Others just ran out of road completely down at turn 1, but thankfully able to rejoin the road without picking up any damage. The free practice period for the drivers, very much a learning exercise. Lots of drivers being done for track limits, and Filipe Almancaras for Team Greece under investigation for not following the instructions of the race director. But having topped the times for the bulk of the session, it was Team Israel that hung it out there to the very end. Juan Cota was second for Team Spain, but Ariel Alkin for Team Israel fastest by 0.367 of a second. Italy has hitherto dominated F4 in the FIA Motorsport Games. On today's evidence, though, it's going to be very different as Israel tops free practice 2.